My Hero Academia is really interesting right now, guys. It looks like Horikoshi is making up for the predictability of the whole Dobby identity reveal by throwing nothing but curveballs, and so far, I can't say that I mind. With the last one, the battlefield got all kinds of complicated as Best Jeanist had finally re-entered the fray and simultaneously was able to detain every present member of the Paranormal Liberation Front. And this was a huge play that seemed to shift the battle in the hero's favor immediately. But of course, with Dobby's quirk being fire-based, he was able to burn right through the threads almost immediately, and even managed to deliver a pretty concerning blow onto Nejire. At the command of an exhausted Shigaraki, Gigantomachia began to resist Jeanist's hold with all his might, as Shoto and Toya shared quite the brotherly moment that included a fiery hug and the threat of death. But with the incoming approach of some near high-end Nomu, Deku wanted nothing more than to make his broken body move forwards to help. However, the one to save the day would be none other than the powerful Lemillion, as his return to heroics was here as well. With this latest chapter, we pick up right where we left off as Muriel began to descend downwards after his devastating flurry of blows, and boy does this man look cool. He really is like a young All Might, because as soon as he came through, I immediately felt a bit of reassurance. Even more so than with the entrance of Best Jeanist, funny enough. Now, Deku immediately questioned how in the world Lemillion was here to help, which makes total sense because the guy has been out of the game for a hot minute. And so to show up at a time like this in a way like this is just mind-blowing. I mean, last week the whole entire fandom was screaming power at the top of their lungs, or at least that's what the comment section was looking like. But apparently, the Mountain team had contacted him as Sir Night Eye's agency was actually pretty close to their location. The Mountain team, or at least the remnants, being our collective of first-year students. And now that I think about it, maybe I'm tripping, but why was it only first-year students on the scene? Especially when facing the apparent headquarters of this villainous organization. Where the hell are the second-year students? I can certainly understand Horikoshi's desire to refrain from revealing something like that or whatever, but now thinking about it, it's pretty damn weird. Never really got the chance to get that point across on account of our forced hiatus a few months back, so let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. And the only thing I can really think of would be that maybe they haven't gotten their provisional licenses. I mean, this year's first years are pretty accelerated in their training on account of the extenuating circumstances going on with the League of Villains and what have you. But even then, why wouldn't you do the same across the board? I don't really know. But anyways, Lemillion had been out of commission for 6 months or so, which is pretty crazy to think about. I mean, wow, the progression we've seen from these kids, especially Deku, for that to have only been the resultant of 6 months is insane. Because by that brand of logic, Deku has long since surpassed All Might. Or at least he's on the path to, as All Might was a whole third-year student out here getting washed by Gran Torino 1v1. Meanwhile, Deku has multiple quirks, is in his first year of schooling, and has been giving fools the hands since day one. The rate of progression is wild, and we have only just begun. Deku has only just started to scratch the surface of his power, and it's hard to believe. Not to mention that it appears to have only taken Eri 6 months to have gotten her quirk where it needs to be to help Muriel. I for some reason was under the impression that it would have taken a bit longer, but I suppose that it makes sense. Most kids kind of instinctually know what to do with their quirks on the most basic of levels following its manifestation. And so for a complicated one like hers, once placed in a safe environment to explore, figuring it out wouldn't take much longer. Now apparently, Bubble Girl told Muriel in advance about the fight against the Liberation Front, and he immediately wanted to be of service. And I can't say that I would do the same as she did, because at the end of the day, although he may have been powerful before, without a quirk, he's just a civilian, and this is a secret operation. The last thing I'd want to do is make him feel some type of way not being able to participate, but I guess it all worked out. Muriel, being eager to get back into the game, had been observing the progression of Eri's training for the last 2 months. And this training was apparently conducted with the use of insects and lizards. And a part of me feels like the whole lizard thing may be a little cruel, like they could have just used plants or something, but it is what it is. Muriel would immediately become apologetic and tell Eri that he doesn't want to make her feel like he's just using her to get his quirk back, but he really wants her to test Rewind on him. And after getting the permission of Eraserhead, Eri would hold onto Muriel's face with her little hands and tell him not to apologize, that this is what she had been training for. And this was just so touching. I absolutely loved it. But I want you to notice the size of her horn here, as opposed to the present day at the beginning of the chapter, as it looks like to do this, Eri used a lot of her stored energy and probably won't be able to do something this big for a while, which is totally understandable. I mean, she brought him back 6 whole months. That is a long time. But I'd argue that in the future, with more control over her power, the size of the horn won't really matter, as she was able to rewind her own father into non-existence, which would have been her sending his body back decades. But with things currently being this way, following the events of this war, it may take some time for her to help Deku out and revert him back to a state of having healthy limbs. But shifting back to the present day, Muriel was thanking Eri in his head as he was pelted by small boulders from a near high-end Nomu, which he completely phased through, now saying aloud that he can't exactly take out the Nomus in one shot by his lonesome, so he's going to need a bit of backup, as he would look behind himself towards an incoming light with an expression that completely took me back to the old school Astro Boy manga. And listen, yes, Muriel is strong, he is very strong, we have been talking about him rattling the brain cells of these villains, but if nothing else, Nomu of this level and beyond are built to last and are pretty durable, so although he could probably take them out if given the appropriate time right now is of the essence here. And speaking of a need for speed, we then receive Bakugo thinking to himself, reflecting on the way his explosions went off when saving Deku, that they were somehow different. Both fast and powerful, they stockpiled onto one another, becoming larger and faster. That the sensation he felt, that sudden sense of urgency forced upon him on the verge of death and the need to save Deku from Shigaraki, it caused something to change. And this, my friends, is Bakugo's Quirk Awakening. An easily overlooked but oh so exciting moment that we will definitely cover in another video, so be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor if you haven't already. But just like in the case of seeing Deku in danger, Bakugo would go faster than he has ever before in order to save his mentor Best Jeanist and aid in fending off the Nomu. Now, there is a whole lot going on in this wide shot, but I need you to recognize something. Look at Bakugo's placement. He moved faster than Ida could, despite being the furthest from the target location and having his body pierced all over. This boy is a monster! And Ida was shook because Bakugo shouldn't be moving at all in his condition. But another thing to notice here would be Nejire. Thank you, Horikoshi, for not benching this girl. She is messed up and her hair is a mess, but she is still here putting in that work and I am so thankful. I was afraid that she was going to be useless, but right now it looks like that was an excuse to have her pull up with a shorter haircut following the time skip. And Muriel, being a proper gentleman, would question if she was alright, and she would respond by saying that with him here, she was just fine, as she looked to be even more fired up for the fight. No pun intended. Best Jeanist then similarly checked up on Bakugo, purposefully mentioning his name, as Bakugo would then smile and say that he'd been holding onto his hero name just for Best Jeanist, that from now on he would be God of Explosive Destruction, Dynamite. And it looks like everyone had an opinion on this, all of which being negative with the exception of Spinner and Muriel. And it's interesting, I wasn't expecting this moment we've been waiting for to be handled in this way. Not the name per se, but the reactions to it. It seems like this is our little bit of comic relief in this high intensity moment, and I wasn't expecting that to be the case. But you know what, removing the extra paragraph ahead of it, Dynamite is a pretty clever name. It's like an All Might pun and reminds me of Deku's potential names like All Might Jr. and all that, without the connection being weird. Muriel would then compliment Bakugo on his name, calling it funny. which of course would piss Bakugo off as he wasn't exactly going for funny here. But with this, Muriel would then hit us with a quote you could probably find inside the lid of a Snapple bottle that was pretty much the same philosophy that All Might employs about smiles, the sort of mentality his late master Night Eye had shared with him. But with Shigaraki kept at bay right now, it was up to them to clear up the battlefield. And on pretty much the other side of the fight, that brotherly conflict we spoke of earlier would continue on as Toya would then embrace his little brother, saying that the others seemed to be having such fun while Shoto was alone in agony. And Horikoshi, you absolute genius of a villain. The way that Toya's words can apply to the here and now, and even Shoto's childhood being kept from his siblings playing, is just brilliant. And as Toya hugged him, Shoto brought up a point we had made with the previous chapter, that Toya's body will just burn at this rate, as Toya would respond by saying that he's happy to have such a considerate little brother. But what's more is that he's overjoyed to see the look on Endeavor's face, that even when his most precious toy Shoto is on the verge of being destroyed by his greatest failure, he couldn't do a damn thing. He was completely and utterly broken. And broken like the mind of Toya, as he would continue to intensify his bodily flames, now wondering what sort of face their father would make if he kills Shoto right now. And all the while, the man is just melting all over. I mean, it is just horrible. Now, does he have the capacity to cook Shoto? I doubt it, but luckily for him, Shoto is very much holding back because of his emotions right now. But suddenly, Black Whip would interrupt their brotherly bonding time, now latching onto Dobby. With Best Jeanist being supported by the others, Deku felt it was up to him to protect Shoto as he thought back to his quirk training alongside his friends. And so here we have it, Froppy style Black Whip. Deku used Black Whip from his tongue and I was just floored, like I absolutely audibly yelled out when I saw this. What in the world is going on? This is just hilarious as once again Deku goes ahead and makes another one of his classmates obsolete. Like, if I am a hero in this world, I am just lawyering up because this man is biting more flows than Monoma. Not only would he hold onto Dobby, but he would pull himself upwards, all the while having broken arms and legs, as Dobby would tell him to stay out of their family drama, as Deku would respond that he's getting involved because Shoto is a precious friend of his and Endeavor is a mentor of his that helped push him to the next level. And furthermore, that the past doesn't just go away, and that's why Endeavor had been working so hard to make amends, that's the Endeavor that he is watching. Which just calls back to Endeavor's #1 hero speech, which actually spoke to the man's heart. But Dobby, now cackling to himself, would question where the pity was for him as a consequence of Endeavor's sins, that all he's done is show the people where to place their blame, that the future to come is all too clear, as the bindings of Best Jeanist would begin to snap and break as Gigantomachia would finally pull the threads apart, with Best Jeanist no longer being able to contain him. But with this, with the words of Midoriya reigniting his heart, Endeavor would leap up into action and strike the behemoth. And surprisingly, Gigantomachia would go down to the ground. His strength was waning and he couldn't get back up, as Muriel would begin to mention a part of the Mountain Team's message, as the sedative had finally went into effect. And that is the chapter. Oh my goodness, so much content to unpack with this one. Horikoshi really gave us a little bit of everything, and it was certainly a ride and a half. Attempting to break from Jeanist's hold really burnt a whole lot of energy from Machia, and with him out of the picture, I really wonder how the villains will make it out of this one. But let's not forget that Toga is still running around and has the ability to copy quirks of certain people she truly loves, so let's not get caught lacking. And at that, I better not catch you not being subscribed to the channel, because you know we only go plus ultra when it comes to making these videos for you. And I must say the support recently has been amazing. You guys are so kind in the comments and we seriously appreciate you appreciating what we do. If you'd like to help support us even more, please consider giving our Patreon page a look. But with all that being said, you already know that when it comes to bringing you some of the best My Hero Academia content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I am Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.